Dominated by its large medieval castle built by Gilbert de Clare in the 13th century, Caerphilly was a busy market town, well known for its milk cheese produced by local farmers. But by the end of the 19th century, the sinking of coal pits around the town itself saw an increase in the population of the area, with many moving into the Caerphilly Basin looking for work. New communities were formed around the coal pits, and a spirit of hope and anticipation for a new century was prevalent.
In 1900, Caerphilly was a busy town. An agricultural centre, its fairs and markets held in the square were an important part of everyday life. Coal provided the main form of employment, but it also brought heartache and tragedy. At the beginning of the 20th century, other forms of employment were arriving, particularly the railway works, and Caerphilly could look forward to the new century with great confidence.
Caerphilly was a busy town with shops to provide for everyone's needs. The centre of commerce for its surrounding coal villages such as Senghenydd, Abertrydyr and Llanbradach. The weekly markets and fairs still attracted a great number of people, as Dot Phillips remembers.
On the Twyyn we used to have a lot of fairs. Sometimes it was a horse fairs, you know, and the cattle. And Twyyn was a very busy place then. And they were nice days, fairs of all descriptions.
A royal visit to the town in 1907 by King Edward VII and his wife Alexandra caused great excitement. And the building of the Llanbradach viaduct ensured that coal from the area could reach Barry and Cardiff docks. It was, however, the opening of the railway works in Caerphilly that gave great employment to the town itself, with many travelling from Cardiff to work there.
Well, the purpose of those mainly was overhauling steam locomotives with various degrees of repair, from a light repair to a heavy repair. The heavy repair being when you take the boiler out and the wheels out and every such thing as that.
The railway line went from Caerphilly to the surrounding valleys, such as Senghenydd, Llanbradach and Abertrydyr, the coal pits without a doubt being the essential employer.
Which each employed probably anything between 1,500, 2,000 or more men. And of course the amount of coal produced from those collieries was tremendous.
The danger and distress of working in the mine was never far away. The Universal Pit at Senghenydd had already suffered a terrible disaster in 1901, and on October the 14th, 1913, experienced another explosion. The Universal Pit was in flames, and families waited in anticipation for any news. Maggie Rich's father never made it to work that day.
Well, the day before, he said to my mother, Maggie said, I got a hole in my boot. He said, I want new boots. Oh, she said, well, I'll go get them. And she went and bought them, and he tried them on, and in the night, and he said, I can't go to work with these. He said, they're pinching me, I can't walk. If he had gone in, he would have been in the explosion.
The disaster was the worst ever seen in Britain, and a whole community was totally shattered. 439 men had been killed, over 200 women widowed, and 542 children left fatherless. The late Lillian Farley remembers the day her husband was brought up from the pit.
My husband was brought up on the Saturday night that his father was being buried on the Sunday morning with his wife up in Groeswen.
Coal mining became a reserved occupation with the declaration of war a year later in 1914. But this didn't stop those who weren't working in the pits from joining. Many of the men in the town were very keen to sign up.
The Caerphilly Journal, the Caerphilly newspaper in August 1914 talks about, a huge crowds on the Twyyn, 2,000 townspeople going to listen to various speakers and up to 250 men joining up, there and then on the spot. So, there's evidence that there were actually hundreds of people joined up at Caerphilly.
Many of the local Caerphilly rugby side had signed up to go to the war. William Rossiter, the chairman of the club, tragically killed in the Battle of the Somme, and a private residence in Bronrhew became a Red Cross hospital. The war ended in 1918 and the miners themselves began putting money aside for their own hospital. And by 1923, the Caerphilly Miners' Hospital opened. Treatment for any accidents that happened within the mine could now be given closer to home. On the banks of the River Rumney, tiny Pont Bargoed village remained undisturbed by the heads of the valley's ironworks until 1858, when a railway viaduct was built high above the houses. With the line linking Rumney Works to Cardiff, a new local station was given a shorter name, Bargoed. Local harpist William Morgan won the World Championships at Chicago in 1893, but it was coal that would bring real fame, dwarfing the existing Gilvach colliery.
In 1897, the Powell Dyffryn Coal Company began to sink deep shafts in the valley floor between Bargoed and Bargoed, aiming to locate reserves of top-grade steam coal. Soon the huge Bargoed colliery would begin to produce coal prized by the British Navy and by other navies too. It would also create a rapidly growing new town for the start of a new century. But the story of Bargoed would be a classic one of 20th century boom and bust.
The new town of Bargoed and its shopping streets grew very early in the 20th century, with the top-class Emporium department store taking pride of place. Proclaimed the metropolis of the valleys, Bargoed won shoppers from older towns. 100-year-old Aneurin Thomas remembers how the railway was used by his own family at nearby Vauxhall to change their shopping habits.
Brecon and Mercer Railway extended their run now from Brecon down to Newport. And it gave Vauxhall people now the opportunity to go down to Bargoed, 5 miles down the valley, instead of up to Dowlas. The conditions were certainly better because getting off the train in Bargoed, they were right in the shopping centre. So for convenience sake alone, Vauxhall people naturally started shopping in Bargoed.
Bargoed's growth was based around the Powell Dyffryn colliery, a huge complex including 3 shafts, a power station, byproducts plant and coke ovens operating by 1903. Dr. David Williams describes the transformation.
You had a hamlet, Pont Bargoed, which had 500 people. Coal came with the sinking of the pit, and it suddenly blossomed into a 15,000 town. It happened at the turn of the century and really made Bargoed.
As Bargoed grew, by 1911 local Welsh speakers had dropped to 40% of the population, and Welsh faced rapid decline. Along with shops and houses, new schools were built, but Aneurin Thomas qualified for the long-established and prestigious Lewis School, Pengham.
I won a scholarship for Pengham School, and I used to go down to Bargoed just to see the place. Then I started having music lessons with a teacher in Bargoed, Mr. Gabriel. And from then on, of course, Bargoed became my centre.
More collieries, Groesfine, Britannia and later Ogilvie were sunk in the area as the quality of local steam coal was recognised. Bargoed coal became the choice of the British Admiralty and also of shipping lines and navies worldwide, causing problems at times of conflict, even in the Far East.
When the Japanese were fighting the Russians in the War of 1905, they were supplying Bargoed coal to one of the navies, and the other country said if they did not supply Bargoed coal to its navy, it would compromise Britain's neutrality.
A giant tip was dumped alongside the pit as Bargoed miners established world production records in 1908 and 1909. With the First World War in 1914, the British Navy looked to them for the best coal. Many local youngsters went to war, including Will Thomas, an Irene's cousin.
The first news I had about Will was that he had been killed in action. He hadn't been in the army for 12 months. And that left a sad memory for the family.
Crowds attended the unveiling of the Bargoed Memorial to over 100 local war dead in 1921.